Hello and welcome to another TLDR News EU video. You might be experiencing a tiny bit of deja vu here. Didn't we put out a video on this exact topic in December? Well, yeah, we did, and it actually did really well. In the first couple of hours, it did way better than the other videos released around the same time, and picked up over 1,000 likes in a couple of hours. The problem was that the top comment wasn't all that positive, and the bigger problem was that I agreed with them, something we admitted in a post at the time. So we took down the video and vowed to have another go, and here I am. We took a couple of weeks, and we're here again to explain how the EU's budget will work without Britain. Let's start by explaining how the EU budget works. As the European Commission is at pains to stress, the EU budget is decided democratically, with a four-step process. The European Commission firstly proposes a draft annual budget, which is then approved by national governments in the Council, and then the directly elected European Parliament, both of whom can amend the budget, before both approve the final version. Each member state is expected to contribute towards these costs for obvious reasons, but how countries' contributions are calculated is a little complicated. We can make a whole video on this topic, but contributions are calculated using three main components: their traditional own resources, i.e. tariffs, the amount they collect from VAT, and their GNI. The objective is that using these measures, they can fairly balance the cost of the EU, making sure that everyone contributes, but also ensuring that everyone's contributing at a level they can afford. Now, the whole conceit of this video might feel a little egotistical, especially coming from a British guy. How could Europe possibly cope without us? But this is a question that's genuinely worth asking, and that's because the UK was a major contributor to the EU's budget. Most importantly though, the UK was a net contributor, and that's a really important distinction. Every member state contributes to the EU budget, but not every country is a net contributor. No, the EU's not talking about fishing all over again. Net contributors are countries who contribute more to the EU budget than they get back from the EU, while net recipients get more money from the EU than they pay in, with them often being recipients of EU grants, subsidies, investments, etc. The EU budget invests in every member state. The question is this ratio. According to data from the EU Commission in 2018, only 10 member states were net contributors, these being, in order of net contributions, Germany, the UK, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, Austria, Denmark, Finland and Ireland, with every other EU country receiving more from the EU than they pay into the budget, with Greece, Hungary and Poland getting the most from the Union. It's also worth saying that while they're not at the top of the list, the Netherlands does actually contribute the most per person towards the EU. That's not to say that these countries aren't getting a lot of things out of EU membership, or aren't better off economically because they're a part of the club. They might be losing out when it comes to the EU's budget, but they may benefit from EU protections, standards, projects and collaboration. This means that even those who are paying most into the EU will likely be better off economically than if they weren't members at all. Anyway, this video was meant to be about the UK's exit, and you may be one step ahead of me here, but there's one major reason why the UK is an important country when it comes to the EU's budget. Yep, the UK is not only a major contributor to the EU, but also a major net contributor. With the UK gone, Britain will no longer be paying into the EU's budget. Well, there's some caveats that we'll get to at the end of the video, but this does mean that the EU will no longer be getting this major stream of income from the UK. It does also mean that the EU won't need to pay out to the UK, saving them a bunch of money too. The problem is that because the UK is a net contributor, these two things don't balance out. There's a nearly €10 billion hole left in the EU's budget by the UK's departure. €10 billion that the UK used to pay in and then was redirected to these other countries. The problem for the EU is that just because the UK is not paying its tab anymore, doesn't mean that these countries won't be expecting their EU funding. So the question is, how does the EU make this work? Well, there are essentially two options here. Either A, the EU gets everyone to pay in more, the other net contributors pick up the slack left by the UK's departure, continuing to pay for the same EU projects and initiatives as before, or B, they decide to cut back, reducing funding and projects in order to decrease the shortfall. Well, obviously we don't know for sure which of these routes the EU will decide to take in the long term, but there's certainly some pretty good indicators that they're not going for option B. That's because it's no secret that the EU is already planning on spending extraordinary amounts in the coming years when taking into account the coronavirus recovery package. Even before COVID came around and complicated matters though, the EU already had major spending plans, especially surrounding their new green initiatives and Europe's Green New Deal. Currently, the EU spends around 1% of Europe's GNI each year. Confusing sentence? Let me break that one down for you. GNI stands for Gross National Income, which is essentially the amount of money earned by all businesses and individuals in a country in a given year. So essentially, if you added up all the money that every individual and business earned in every European country in a single year, that's Europe's GNI. What I was saying a moment ago is that the EU's budget is equivalent to about 1% of this figure. So the EU's spending 1% of the EU's total income on projects, initiatives, etc. The thing is that the actual amount of money the EU needs to spend each year goes up. Take into account the role of inflation, the expansion of EU priorities, the development of EU projects and initiatives, etc., and that figure invariably has to rise faster than ever. In turn, the Commission was proposing an increase to 1.11% of the EU's GNI. So it seems that the EU is certainly not keen on reducing costs. If anything, they want to increase spending. So that only leaves one other option. Increase the amount of money coming in from member states, enough to not only cover the UK's tab, but also the increased spending. This would likely put more pressure on the countries who already contribute the most, something which is starting to worry such member states. Late last year, some quite extreme figures came out in media reports. German government estimates seen by the Financial Times in October 2019 suggested that Germany's contributions to the EU budget would have to increase in net terms from 15 billion euros in 2020 to an excess of 33 billion euros by 2027, the last year of the next multi-annual financial framework. According to the Dutch Finance Ministry, the Netherlands bill would also increase by nearly 75%, from in the region of 7.5 billion euros to an excess of 13 billion euros by 2027. The two things put together, according to Merkel, mean that Germany would leapfrog the Netherlands as the biggest per capita contributor to the budget, with Germany already holding the title of being the biggest gross contributor. And this didn't just seem to be fear-mongering either, with the European Commission warning in 2019 that unless the United Kingdom continues to contribute to the 2019 and 2020 budgets, a no-deal Brexit would invariably leave a significant funding gap, requiring both budget reductions and additional contributions by member states to the EU's budget. Unsurprisingly, the historic net contributors weren't that happy with this idea. Obviously, opinions on the EU and sentiment towards funding European projects vary from nation to nation, but there are certain parts of Europe growing increasingly tired of picking up the bill. Because of that, countries that have traditionally been quite significant net contributors to the EU budget have been urging some restraint, encouraging Europe to decrease spending following the UK's departure. The biggest proponents of this cent pinching, comes from the so-called Frugal Four: the Netherlands, Austria, Sweden and Denmark. The Frugal Four, according to figures from the European Commission, contributed just under 6.7 billion euros more than they collectively received in 2019 alone. So it's clear that the UK's departure is increasing tensions that already existed. The EU's built on a natural imbalance, with some countries supporting others, but with one major contributor leaving, the worry is that this could cause tensions to boil over. However, as we alluded to earlier, despite leaving the EU, the UK's credit card is definitely going to continue being used at the EU's table. Firstly, that's because the EU budget operates on 7-year timeframes, sometimes making plans for spending without requiring the money from member states until the project or initiative is realised. The UK will ultimately be required to cough up its share of funding of outstanding commitments that it made while it was a member state. In a similar vein, the EU has certain liabilities that aren't really covered by their budgets, most importantly that of pensions. The agreed financial settlement between the UK and EU means that the UK will continue to share the financing of some EU liabilities as they stood at the end of 2020. The UK's Office of Budget Responsibility has estimated that by the time the final payment is made in 2060-something, future liabilities and commitments may come to some 33 billion. And that ignores voluntary participation in EU projects. If the UK wants continued access to Horizon Europe, the EU's research programme, Copernicus, the EU's Earth observation project, and Erasmus, which allows students to study in European universities, it's highly likely they'll have to make proportionate contributions to those individual projects. Ultimately, try as we might, there's no satisfying answer to this question though. The UK is certainly a major contributor to the EU, and losing its funding will leave a major hole in the European Union's budget, an issue that seemingly escalated conflicts that already exist between those countries who urge more restraint and those who want to see the EU becoming even more ambitious and spend even more. The question is how the EU plans to find its way out of this, asking for more money, less spending, or both. It seems that the EU's planning to spend more than ever, with the EU's next MMF agreed at the end of 2020 also backing up this assumption. What this means for the EU's future though, well, that's anyone's guess at this point. If you do want us to dive deeper into the EU's latest budget agreements, what countries agreed to spend and on what, then like this video and comment below to let us know. Anyway, what do you think? Is the loss of the UK's contributions an issue that will plague the EU for some time to come? Or has this issue been completely blown out of all proportion, and the EU will be able to work this out equitably in the months and years ahead? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more updates. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible, and if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.